What's up everybody, Supersmallchibiwolf here. Today I'm going to be reviewing Pokémon and Indigo League. Now this is the 82 episode anime series with the 1990s, and let me just say this real quick because the first recording was too long. Long story short, did I know that the two season finales were Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball, and now Pokemon. So all three, I loved them growing up. Long story short, growing up, I watched all three. Loved them back then, still love them now. And yeah, there was animes in between and all that, but these were like the main three. You know what I mean? That I love. So with that being said, let's continue on with the video. So the first thing I want to talk about are the characters. Now the characters are classic and iconic. They were funny, they had many friendly rivalry moments, and despite having many moments where they would be disappointed on the choices the other one makes, they still love and respect each other and try their best to become better Pokemon trainers and a better Pokemon team. Now the first character I want to talk about is Ash Ketchum. He was a nice-hearted guy who wants to be the very best like no one ever was. He loves meeting new people, making friends, forming long, strong relationships with people he meets, and he tends to get excited and sometimes too excited and would mess things up by accident. Ash is my favorite character in anime for many reasons, comparing him to other two finales of the animes that I reviewed, Usagi Tsukino or Sailor Moon and Goku. Ash's story is, I would say, how he handles his life is unique and different compared to the other two. Now, one thing which I loved about Ash and kind of forgot is he would actually get mad enough to start a fight with the other trainers, but later on he is less serious and more nice, but it would have been funny to see Ash get into a physical fight. Now don't get me wrong, in ways, overall I would say, breaking it down, Ash, Usagi, Goku. Yeah, I might like all three equally, but breaking it, what was it? Now, kind of thinking about the other two and thinking about Ash after rewatching it all of them. I remember the other 2 years. So far, I'd say Ash a little bit more. But overall, I'd say, he has such a cool and iconic design, which I always loved. And overall, I love Ash. He's cool. Next character I want to talk about is Pikachu. Pikachu, he was a funny and loyal Pokemon friend to Ash. Ash's Pikachu is special. He tends to be more capable in handling so many craziness compared to the other Pokemon, even compared to other Pokemon Ash owns or other Pikachus. I love Pikachu, even, what was it, when he is, what was it, the development, the story from beginning to end. Pikachu's overall story, I would say, it was great. I liked it. It's pretty cool. Also, I have to bring this up. Episode 10, time period of 353, the Pikachu meme moment, which I love and which kind of gained popularity, I believe, last year, and yeah, I've seen it this year as well. So we all know I have Pikachu plushies, but I would also say that, I love Pikachu a lot, for many reasons. He tends to push himself to just basically overcome his limit, and he tends to do that a lot. Pikachu, even if he's like put up against, say, the type which, say if you were playing the game wise would destroy that type. Like for example, water beats fire, fire beats grass, grass beats water. That would be like the way. But Pikachu, he will kind of overcome all that stuff in order to win. So that's one thing I always loved about Pikachu. Next character I'm going to talk about, I'm going to try to speed more than all the other ones, is Misty. Misty, she was a funny Cinderella, and I love Misty. She was cool, she has a cool design, she was a gym leader within Indigo League, she gets many great Pokemon, and so much more. She is the original cute best girl in Pokemon, or best Pokemon girl, and I always loved how Misty and Ash has so many friendly rivalry moments. She is one of the greatest Cinderellas of all time, and I love Misty. She is, I'd say, comparing her to the other characters within this anime, like for example, there was Misty, Nurse Joy, many side characters. Overall, I'd say Misty was my favorite. She was always my favorite while watching the originals. You know, Also, I love how, she's the one to kind of save the girls for Brock when he's always there to seduce them and all that and talk all fancy and cute. She's always there to kind of be like, yeah, let me just take him away so all of you could be more free. And, yeah, it's just overall so cool. Next character I want to talk about is Ash's mom. Long story short, she was a nice lady, pretty cool, caring mom to Ash, always reminding him to take care of himself, and overall, she was cool. Great mom to Ash. Now, next character I'm going to talk about is Brock. Brock, let me just say, I love Brock. Brock, he was so cool, he was great, he was a funny guy who also is like a gym leader. He's probably the most popular anime character that never opens his eyes. Other characters would be like Chizuru from Squid Game, by the way. And we see many other characters after him, the similar design. I love his backstory. For example, he was like a persistent lady chaser who desires love and who cares for his friends, and that includes his Pokemon. He would be a skillful Pokemon trainer while still finding time to seduce the beautiful young ladies that comes upon. Whether it's the Norse joys of the world, other Pokemon trainers, gang members like the Bike Gang, which, dude, that episode was great. Just seeing him at that. And overall, I'd say my favorite line on Brock's was on episode 9, time period of 8:30, when he says, "She can violate my rights." I think at any time, or I think that was it. But unfortunately, I would say it stops there. But we know what he would say. I think there was a full version somewhere. I may be wrong. Maybe it was always like that. But long story short, Brock was always this cool guy, and I would say, he's similar to other anime characters like him. For example, I would say like Master Roshi and I believe Sanji. Yeah, he fought recently in those fights. So yeah, one of those, lady lovers who's always there. But he isn't in that level. He's more of a contained one. And when it comes to anyone but Misty, he goes for it. Now, in my opinion, maybe in the future we see the Pokemon final anime. It would be nice to see, Brock finally coming with Misty. I think that would be pretty cool. But besides that, let's move on to Professor Oak. Professor Oak, he was always great as well. He was a funny guy who tends to be like a mentor to Ash, giving him advice and helping him out when he needs help. He was the grandfather of Ash's rival, Gary Oak, and I like how he can put his family love aside and look at Gary for what he truly is, an egotistical trainer who thinks he is the best guy ever. He was smart and talented in what he does, and overall Professor Oak is cool. And now the other characters, no, Team Rocket, yes, that's who's... let me just say, Team Rocket is one of the greatest villainous groups of all anime and possibly fiction. I just love them, from their funny, crazy, random plans to their unique, cool Pokemon. And what was it, their pickup line, and just overall, they just have so many things, going on for them, and how they formulate the plots and all of them. I would say this, even if you break down each one, they're interesting. For example, you got Jessie. She was a serious and smart girl that tends to be smarter than the smartest one in the team. She tends to be talented in disguising herself to fit the plan that she has in order to successfully trick Ash and his friends. Then you got James. Also, by the way, let me just say, James and Meowth's story, I like the backstory. They were pretty cool and interesting. I loved it. But James, he was a mix of funny and serious at times, and I like that about him. Not too much on either side. We can see that what was it? He is like more of a funny character, right, of the group, and like James. Yeah, Jesse was kind of like that too, to be honest. But I'd say a little bit more James. Despite him being like this part of the villain in this crew, Team Rocket, and him kind of trying to get Ash's Pikachu and successfully tricking Ash and his friends alongside Jesse to mess with them at time and time. I like when we got to see a little bit of his wholesome, happy side. I think that was pretty cool also. Because we actually see that he does care. And we see another part of him, which was like, oh, this is great. you know, Next character I want to talk about is Meowth. Now, Meowth, they were pretty cool. He was a funny, evil, and special and rare Meowth Pokemon, similar to Pikachu. He learned how to speak by himself, and I love his backstory. It was interesting, and on episode 72, that's one episode I would say for which I loved that he was in. We get to see more of him. We get to see, how he, what was it, formed who he is today or at that time in the anime. We see many crazy things that he had to go through, and overall, I would say he has shown many times to be a great fighter, and in his backstory episode, he showed that as well. Overall, Meowth is cool. Now, the best thing about Team Rocket is that throughout the punishment and humiliation they go through, they have that strong desire to keep on going on and working to create interesting and great plans to try to, what was it, plans to, in hopes one day to successfully defeat Ash and his friends. Now, I know, I heard, I think a year ago that they succeeded or something. I might be wrong, but yeah, overall, I'd say, well, they did do, I think they was talking about the game, but moving on from that. Um, Overall, the other characters, they were also cool, like single characters, like for example, Duplica, I think was one of them. Cassandra was another one. Those two are those that stand out. What was it? I don't know specific names, but the samurai guy from the beginning, first I think 20 episodes. Yeah, he was pretty cool too. The samurai. I think they called it like the Pokemon Samurai or something like that. So the other characters overall was cool. And also Nurse Joy's. Joy family was also cool. So the next thing I want to talk about is the music. The music was amazing. Just perfect. It's a classic and music which I love the most. For example, the Pokemon theme, the songs within the episodes. Overall, I'd say, even with the intro and outro, we see the visuals of all these cool Pokemon, the legendary Pokemon, singer, the instruments come together and the visuals to create such a great intro. Now, the story is about a 10-year-old boy named Ash Ketchum that dreams of becoming a Pokemon master. After waking up late, he goes to pick up his Pokemon, and he realizes that he is notified by Professor Oak that other kids who came before him and who was more, what was it, professional and wanted to be a Pokemon master or trainer, has come before him and has taken the three starters, which are Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. So, feeling down, he says, Ash, he tries to kind of convince Professor Oak to say, like, hey, you got anything else for me? And Professor Oak gives him with a Pokemon, which is Pikachu. But this Pikachu is special, he says, and it's not normal. And he was correct. So after getting this Pikachu, Ash goes back and he notices that, hey, he shows off to his mom and the friends that are there to congratulate him for getting his first Pokemon once he leaves the Professor Oak's lab or place. And after this celebration, he goes on his adventure. After failing trying to catch a Pidgey, Ash gets frustrated and throws a rock, and then realizes that he just attacked a Sparrow. So the Sparrow that he attacked basically called up his friends, and just like a bunch of aggressive Sparrows come attacking and chasing Ash and Pikachu, which results in Ash jumping into a waterfall only to be fished out by Misty, who's mad due to the condition of Ash's Pokemon, well, that's just Pikachu. Then he realizes that the crazy Pidgey gang is still going after him, so he decides to take Misty's bike to escape, but falls due to getting attacked. So Ash decides to stand up to the Pidgeys and protect Pikachu. Pikachu, seeing that Ash cares for him, he jumps and aggressively gives the biggest lightning shock, or his first big lightning shock of the series, defeating all Pidgeys. And from here, the relationship gets better. And what was it? The adventure begins. Now, story wise, I think it's pretty cool. I always enjoyed the first episode of Pokemon. It's always one of those that I would always put back. Like, I would, Indigo League being the series. I would just go and put any of those episodes, but the first episode is always that one that it just gets to me. You know what I mean? I just could keep on watching it, keep on loving it. It's just so great, you know. But yeah. So next thing I want to talk about is Pokemon. I think I said this already. Pokemon compared to the other two season finales, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball. I'd say all three of them. The reason I chosen these three, to be like the first is, I remember them the most, to be honest. I'd say probably those three, they represent something. And I would say, when it comes to like magic and, what was it, crazy villains and stuff like that, I always think about like Final Fantasy, Sailor Moon, and Dragon Ball. And when I think about like unique things, like, animals with, what was it, I'd say Pokemon, the summonings of the Final Fantasy games. I remember Sailor Moon had Luna. Overall, I'd say, even the Super Mario and Zelda games, and, I would say those fit in that genre of when I remember stuff that I really enjoyed, that was really cool growing up. All of that stuff, especially Pokemon, is there. And that's why I chosen Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, and Pokemon for the first three big animes of the season finales of the last, what was it, the first year, then the last year, and this year. Oh man, yeah, I love them. But I love Pokemon, and I would say, there's many things about the series as a whole that I enjoy. I remember seeing the one with Dawn, which I think Diamond and Pearl, Origins, which had Red. I think, yeah, the first movie. Yo, that was pretty cool. So many iconic moments within the Pokemon series, and even the Pokemon manga, which I unboxed. I had the manga before, but I don't even know where it is. That's more lost than the original Super Mario Land games, which I had growing up. I do not know. No, I found them, to be honest. Yes, I found, I think, two of them or three. Yes. And let me just say, wow. One is really weird condition, while the other two is scratches here and there, but overall, they look great. But moving on from that's how I would compare the Pokemon manga which I grew up with. But I always loved, the Pokérap as well. It's a fun classic and just overall great. And also, like, who is this Pokemon? And then they reveal it. I know these are like small things, but overall, it's just one of those things which it's like that, you know what I mean? It just reminds me, like, for example, the intro of the PlayStation 1, when you press it, it's like, whoa, it's just many great, things which I love. It's still to this day. Also, while watching Pokemon, man, I remember the VHS tapes from back in the day. I used to have the VHS tapes of the Pokemons, and dude, it's just so cool. I don't even know where they are, and I kind of disappointed because I don't even know where the hell they are. But let me just tell you, it was just the best, man. Yo, I remember that. And also, I remember like having the other, like these plushies are like the newer ones, right? But I remember having other stuff as well that, even like what was the blanket and stuff, which now my niece uses. But So many great Pokemon related memories I have. I should make a video of that. Pokemon memories. They shit, man, it's so cool. And you know for sure the VHS tapes will be in that video. And like when me talking about them. Because I remember just so many things with those VHS tapes of anime related and Pokemon I had more of, you know. But with that being that, let me just say speed one the last few things. Number one, I love that they have like the 90s, what was it? Yeah, well, the phone call scene and the many great graphics of the 1990s and just all out great. I love how, what was it? Pikachu powers up, what was it? The, no. I'm trying to remember the Squirtle Squad. Yo, how can I forget Squirtle Squad episode, the Butterfree episode, the when Pikachu is without a Pikachu's and they create like a power source. And I'm not trying to spoil anything. Just speed one a lot of things. The backstory of Ash and Butterfree, Ash and Charmander, Ash and Squirtle, Ash and I think Meow. No, Meowth's backstory. I talked about that. And overall, of course, Ash and Pikachu's backstory or story. Overall, these are like many episodes, which is why just am willing to just spend over the 20-minute limit which I originally had for this episode because I truly wanted to nail down the 2020 Chibi review last video of the year because I truly love this. Yeah, it's just like so much more I want to talk about. But let me just say this. We all know there are over 1,000 Pokemon. But back then it was 150 Pokemon. Now the intro is kind of misleading due to how due to how they say, for example, Ash, what was it? Catch them all. If a couple of them are extinct, yeah, something like that. What was it? The pink Pokemon intro was like, gotta catch them all. Da, 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 da. But it's impossible due to the fact that many Pokemon are extinct. And within certain episodes, they do say that. For example, there's over 1,000 now, but back then it was 150 Pokemon. But even back then, you can't catch them all due to, even back then, there were Pokemon that has been confirmed to be extinct in the anime. Now, maybe the manga is different, and you read manga. But, long story short, I would say if it is true, then how could you be the best Pokemon trainer there ever was if there was Pokemon that are extinct? Unless they do some Pokemon magic, which brings them back. Yo, I should do Pokemon theories. Comment below which Pokemon theory you want me to do. I'll do any serious. But, oh man, there's just so many things I want to say. Also, another thing I want to say is the rivalry between Pikachu and Meow. Yo, I love that, man. The moments where those two, fight, or what was it? There was specific moments where they had to work together, or they were put in a specific, I remember one episode, what was it? Pikachu, Meowth, and the other two Pokemon. The Ghastly, I believe his name was, and Snake. They were all like without needles, and then they had to work together, and then it's just so. Oh man. And then what was it? There was this episode where they had like the intro with the giant Pokemon and the Pokemon land, and I remember it was a Pokemon Snap is coming out for the Switch, and I think, yeah, that inspired that game. I might be wrong, but yeah, and just so many great. To be honest right now, I'm just saying random ass stuff of Pokemon. But back then, long story short, there's so many things I can say about Pokemon. But let me just say, I love Pokemon, and each, 3 of these years on this channel. By the way, this is the 3rd year on this channel. 3. And let me just say, from the season finale of Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, Pokemon, I'd say this season overall was more of a creative one. The first one, we're trying to do something, trying to find our fit. The second one, it was more of a, okay, I kind of got an idea. Let's kind of improve more. And then the 3rd year, we improved. We got a stand, we got a mic. and overall Pokemon. With that being that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me just say, Indigo League truly is one of the greatest Pokemon animes or animes overall. The animes that I recommend watching are Sailor Moon 1990s and Dragon Ball late 1980s or early 1990s. And overall, I would say, you know, of course, I recommend Pokemon Indigo League. But with that being that, tell me in the comments who are your favorite Pokemons. Which one of these three animes did you enjoy the most, or which animes are from your childhood? Like for me, I would say, like the big three, you know what I mean? Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, Pokemon. 1990s, when I think about animes, classic anime, it's those three. 1990s anime, it's those three. Those three are like the faces of anime, in my opinion. Of course, you got like other characters, like, let me just speed run this real quick. Yu-Gi-Oh! Gundam, what was his name? Damn it. Yeah, moving off of that. Because, what was it? Like, I would say those two. You got some Digimon over there. But with that being that, I'm just going to end it here because it's 26 minutes. With that being that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, bye. Tell me in the comments who's your favorite Pokemon. Yeah.